On behalf of the Museum Society of Bombay and Cymroza Art Gallery, it gives me great pleasure to welcome all of you here today for a very interesting lecture on this exhibition, Parsee. I welcome Varun, Abhishek and Medhi, who are going to be in conversation with each other. We are really looking forward to hearing what they have to say about this most unusual archival documentation of photographer Keki, who lived in Jamshedpur.
The exhibition started in the form of a book. The Alkazi Foundation selected two young researchers, Joyona Medhi and Abhishek Basu, to do research on a project for a book. Good evening. I'm happy to see some Tata men here today. And this was in 2022 when Abhishek was wandering through Jamshedpur and went to a cafe where he met, shall I say, the protagonist of the whole event, Varun Gazder. Ever since this show opened 3 weeks ago, I've had so many comments from people saying that we have a lot of photographs in our family. What do we do with them? Can we give them to you? I said, you can give them to me, but we have to have a purpose. And they're family pictures. I said, that's fine. This exhibition is also, as you can see, about a city where this family lived and the photographer lived and the family itself. And when I first mentioned this, Rahab mentioned this program to me, that would you like to do this show? I said, what do the photographs say? I said, it's about a family, but it might interest you. And it was quite fascinating. It was the end of the event, and I better get it over with. Rahab said that, I said, are you selling it as portfolios? And being a person who deals in prints and editions, he said, no, it's not a portfolio. I said, are you selling it as postcards? He said, no, it's not postcards either. Where the book award entailed that they publish this book, which they have self-published. And very quietly, they brought about just 30 copies on the day of the opening, and I think we were lucky. Really, you were blessed, and I'm proud of the Bombay audience and book readers to have purchased almost 27 of those books. So it's a very fascinating book, and of course I studied it from spine to spine, and the spine is really magnificent. And from that, Rahab developed this exhibition with both of them, and it opened in New Delhi. It has traveled to Bombay, and I'm happy to say that it will be packed over the weekend, and it's traveling to Jamshedpur. But it is not going immediately back to the owner, who is Varun Gazder. It's going to be appropriately showcased, and they'll tell you all about it, so I'm not going to let out any secrets. But I just want to say something about us charming curators who've traveled on the overnight bus from Goa, which they highly recommend, and Varun, who flew in yesterday from Jamshedpur. I really wish you had been here for the opening. I almost felt you didn't exist. But I'm glad that you're here and very, very happy to welcome you. So what does Joyona Medhi do? She moves fluidly between writing, research, and image making, exploring the ways in which photographs shape our understanding of the world. Her work is rooted in what she describes as slow journalism, long-form narratives, and in-depth reportage, active listening, and process-oriented inquiry. and she now shares her field experience in the classroom as an educator in media studies. Abhishek, Basu, welcome as well, works with fragments and extended visual narratives. His series, done in 2019, called Provoke Papers, and the other one in 2017, which is still ongoing, How Green Was My Mountain, explores India's coal regions, while Labyrinth, done in 2015, and Passion Fruit, also ongoing, trace the emotional and instinctual journey of the self. Alongside his personal practice, he works as an independent assignment photographer. And he was telling me last time and this afternoon, the negatives, the prints, it's something that you would find really where Varun found it in an attic in trunks. And he mentioned that there are more such trunks and places in the attic which he still has to go through. And Abhishek, you'll have to find the time, because this archive is important for many, many reasons, which I know you all will discuss today. Varun Gazder was fortunate to be born and raised in this beautiful city of Jamshedpur. His childhood was shaped by a culture of friendship, trust, generosity, and very importantly, community. That continues to guide him even today. He studied at Loyola School, where the Jesuits instilled in him a commitment to excellence and service. We understand that very well. Later, he trained and worked at the Taj Mahal Palace Hotel in Mumbai, where I first stumbled upon him. And so when I saw him this afternoon and I was shaking hands, I said, I've seen you somewhere before. He says, yes, backstage at all the Zubin Mehta concerts, where they were constantly running out of food with the orchestra, and you were constantly ordering more food. He trained at the hotel in Mumbai, and he imbibed the work culture, ethics, and values associated with the Tata way of doing business. I know they're going to talk about this, but I'll just say a few words, and then you all can take over. There's a lot of Bharucha mansion, which also housed the town's first single-screen theatre called Regal Talkies, and remains fondly remembered by many of the Regal building years later. He now runs a cafe in that building called Regal Cafe, and he has regular visitors. But he said he's on the second floor of the building, but he's quite happy with those regular visitors. And it's conceived as a tribute to his family and the building's legacy. The cafe is filled with carefully preserved memorabilia that reflects its old world charm and rich history. But I forgot to ask you, the Godrej safe is not in the cafe, right? The Godrej safe is not in the cafe. It's in the cafe. Oh gosh, along with an old hand-cranking gramophone player. So I'm not going to stand between you and the audience, and I would request that you don't interrupt their flow of conversation, but hold your questions to later, or even over a cup of tea later. So over to you, comrades in arms, as Rahab would say. Sorry he's not here today.
Thank you so much, Rosa ma'am. I'd just like to begin by thanking you all for taking out the time to be here. And just start with the one question which I've received from everyone. What exactly is Parseeing? What does it mean to Parsee? So I always put it like Parseeing is a verb. It is an action word. It is to see through the fragments and to join the dots, which many of us tend to do whenever we look at old pictures. So that's what we've tried to very consciously and intentionally do with the archive, because there are many faces who are long dead, and many relatives have traveled across seas and are no longer there to give us interviews of the kind of experiences that they would have while the photographs were being shot. So how do we piece together a family story which spans 4 generations? So that is what we've tried to do with Parsee. It is an act which is integral to, I think, all of us. When we look at old photographs, we try to piece together, this mama looks like that chacha, who looks, some gestures, postures look like this is the little Pilu who grew up to be a woman who is standing in a similar posture a few years later. So that is how we've added fiction to this. So it is part reality, part fiction, because we've added both of our experiences of Jamshedpur also as something to build on, which forms the basis of this narrative. So every little anecdote in the book, once you get the time to read through it, you'll find is based in some small interview snippet that Varun's mother, Behroz ma'am, has given us, or something that Dina ma'am might have told us over the phone, or even something as small and sensorial as Varun mentioning that the Morris car used to smell of Shrewsbury biscuit tins because his cousins would get Shrewsbury biscuits back from Bombay. So how smell is also an important record keeper of memory. Oral history is what we've primarily focused on. So that is about Parsee, and the exhibition, why was it so important to make it an exhibition also? It is because, I think I'm going on for too long, but it's because we wanted people to get the same sense that we had got when we first encountered that wooden box. When Varun brought that huge box in front of us, stuffed with letters, postcards, all kinds of memorabilia, even silverfish. So all of that, we wanted the audience of this exhibition, viewer of this exhibition, to feel like as though they're going through that wooden box with us, piecing together not only the narrative that we have put together in the book, but also the entire act of, like we saw a bunch of chairs out here and people gathering together and figuring out who's who. That is the act, that is the exhibition. So I just want to start with a couple of questions to Varun and Abhishek, and I'll also butt in whenever I can. What went on into the making of this archive, and what is the process behind it? So I think today's discussion will primarily be about the many characters of the Bharucha mansion, how he decided to open Cafe Regal up, and at first, I would just like to start with, how does it feel? How does it feel to have all of your family photographs just laid out on the walls like this? It must be surreal.
Thank you so much.
Switch it on.
Thank you so much, everyone. It is incredible that one afternoon conversation with Abhishek here has led to this. And it initially began with the idea of conserving all the pictures that were there, and it's still there, it still needs to be processed. I'll start off with what might sound a little bit sad. When I first opened the first wooden trunk that was there, it was a wooden trunk which contained the overcoat of a man who was 6 foot plus, with his army memorabilia, with his sword as well. And it turns out it was one of my granduncles who fought in the First World War on behalf of the King of Gujarat with the promise of getting freedom for our country. And the thing is that with that there were letters. There were some letters that were there between him and a lady whom he had met in Jamshedpur. And it turns out he had come to visit his sister, which was my grand aunt, from Gujarat before leaving, and they both seem to have hit it off, from what I could understand from the letters, and it seemed that they both would be together. However, after the war, his battalion got scattered, and somehow he survived. He saved a lot of people. He won an award for saving them as well, and he came back. He came back directly to Jamshedpur. He didn't go back to Gujarat. He came back to Jamshedpur for that girl, and unfortunately, they thought that he had passed away, and the girl had been married off to someone else. Heartbroken, he had left that entire trunk behind and went off to England, and he spent the last of his days there. That happened on the first day. The second day that I went back again to see the letters literally crumbled in my hands into dust. They literally crumbled into dust. As if, and I was heartbroken that I was not able to save that incredible story, that incredible journey that the man went through. I was not able to conserve that. And so somewhere I was really, really heartbroken that I couldn't save that, and I needed to do something to make sure that the rest of it could be saved. The rest of it could be preserved. And that's how this has come to this. So, yes.
Yeah. So preserving becomes such an important act when you have such a huge archive, but how? Because one question which I find that we keep on coming back to is context. It's not our story to tell. It is someone else's. So whenever you encounter an archive, you have these questions plaguing you. How can you do justice to someone else's context? So these are the things which Abhishek and I really focused on, and we thought the best that we could do to do justice to context was allow for our own context. So how I have experienced Jamshedpur forms an integral part of the narrative. How I have seen Jamshedpur through these guys' eyes who have actually grown up in Jamshedpur. So I just like to, because we don't forthrightly talk about Jamshedpur in the archive, you see it in the backdrop. So it is not specifically about industry or modernization or pre-independence, post-independence India. It's a family archive. We are reading all of that into it. So I would just like to draw from your experience, if you had to take the audience back to what was the Jamshedpur when you were growing up? Like, how was it as a city then, and how much of it still lives on?
So, since I was born and brought up in Jamshedpur, did my schooling in the same school where Varun had done his schooling. He was a couple of years senior to me. It felt Jamshedpur till today, even if it's developing, it's expanding in its own ways, it does feel that it does hold that old world charm. You can still walk to the public spaces of the city, where you can still walk to the Jubilee Park, to the hospital, to around the main market, the main regions of the city. However, the city does expand in its way. Number of people in the city are growing, but it has that sense of the old Jamshedpur that you see here in these pictures. The city today still has that charm. So through this exhibit or the accumulation of the pictures, we wanted to show that that charm still exists and it holds. So in that book, you will see that Jamshedpur plays an important character, as important as Keki, Gazder, I would say. So yeah, Jamshedpur.
Yeah, I'd just like to add to that and say that whenever I go to Jamshedpur, it reminds me of the Truman Show. If you've seen the movie The Truman Show, and a large part of the narrative kind of draws from Truman Show also, because I've seen his father whenever he passes by the statue of Tata, he does a little bit of a pranam. So their lives are rotating around the routine of the factory. There are sirens in the morning which start off the morning shift. There are sirens in the evening. So the entire town is built around the factory. And when you are photographing your town at that time, you tend to do it in a certain kind of way, which is recording Founders Day Puja, recording a lot of famous celebrities that used to come to Jamshedpur, like Dara Singh's visit is one important event, which is why a lot of wrestling pictures. And Keki also photographed Jamshedpur. So I would like to read out a small line which draws from my experience of Jamshedpur and how I've built Keki's character around it. So, straight lines, grids, and a no-nonsense kind of aesthetic. The photography that Keki found himself engaged in for the purposes of record keeping at the Department of Surveillance and Scrutiny of High-Grade Living under the Bureau of Public Opinion's office was clearly circumscribed. Aerial views of different machines being set up, the annual departmental meetings, recording site inspections, and so forth. In Jamshedpur, the life of the townsfolk was similarly planned and plotted. Routine was their opium, their addiction. The factory sirens punctuated the course of each day. Much like Auden's unknown citizen, Keki went about his business. When there was peace, he was for peace. But when there was war, he went. But unlike the rest of the townsfolk who were almost always either preparing for or getting drunk on Founders Day on the company's dime and dollar, Keki was busy scrutinizing the actual designs and executions of the steel plant. He was fascinated by lines and angles, the very making of a building. The word for him was both a noun and a verb. It had only been a few weeks since he had chanced upon Khurshed's blueprint of the mansion in the attic. So this is a small bit where we have this blueprint of when the Bharucha mansion was established, to somehow to link the blueprint to Keki's view of Jamshedpur, and while he was photographing all that, he came across the blueprint and started thinking of leaving Jamshedpur, going on his travels and getting exposed to a new kind of aesthetic which he came and then later on implemented back in Jamshedpur, like an amateur photography club, flower shows, wrestling competitions, the commissioning of these hand-painted advertisements that you could see out here to be projected at the single-screen theatre at Regal Cinemas, which is below the Bharucha mansion. So they all build a kind of, character around Keki and the kind of photography that he was interested at that time. And that was our first intention, to flesh out these characters from the little that we've heard about and dug into. So I would like to from here go on to a few questions that I have of Varun. We spent so much time talking about Keki the photographer. Tell us about Keki the grandfather. What kind of a person he was when the camera was put away?
As a grandfather, he was certainly a person who ensured that all his grandchildren knew how to sit at the table, were taught etiquettes, were taught manners, how to greet in different languages, how to greet different people in the right manner, and we deeply appreciated him in helping shaping us, all three of the siblings, to the people we are today. And we're very grateful for his sweetness, his kindness, and yeah, that's about it. He was very, very sweet, very kind, and always ensured that the curiosity within us was always the light. As in, what do you think of this? When he would show us pictures of Egypt, or at that point of time, the internet didn't exist. So every day there would be something that would be interesting that would be shown, and our opinion was taken, and there would be a very wide, beautiful, happy smile, and a chocolate would be given for that, Amul Gold.
He's quite eccentric also with the way he, obsessed about the camera, and we have a lot of photographs of him playing in the gardens with the grandparents and everyone.
Yes, that's very true. I think one of the most incredible pictures is at the back over there, where he's taken 3 images together, and it's pretty awesome. His style is very, very unique that way, and he got to travel the world. He got to see different places, and that, I think, influenced his way of doing things, and his ability to see things in a slightly different manner than everyone else, or at that point of time. There are a lot of things that he developed in Jamshedpur, like the United Club was developed by him. The drive-in movie theater, 2 of them was created by him at that time. First time, no one had ever even heard of it. It was amazing. It came from America. All these little things which he initiated and started influenced the culture of Jamshedpur. It shaped it in its own way. So I'm very grateful that there are small things. There is also Fido Badamama for us. He went to Japan for representing India in the Olympics as a management, and from there he brought some of the Japanese cherry blossom trees. So all the there are cherry blossom trees in Jamshedpur, and they are about at the same time and age as it would have been for him to have gone at that point of time. So everyone taking all those beautiful photographs of Jamshedpur with the beautiful trees has been planted, most probably by him, from the trip from Japan. So all these, it's the little things which has made Jamshedpur what it is, and we're very glad that we have been able to be a part of that city and to help it grow and develop from what it was to what it is now.
Yeah. I'd also like to bring in Abhishek here and talk a little bit about what is the one thing that stands out for you in the archive, and how was the process of going through that entire lot of photographs?
So also to add Mr. Keki Gazder's influence on culture in Jamshedpur, while going through the archive, while we were like searching for images and editing, and we suddenly found this article that he'd written in the Tata Steel monthly magazine, where he seemed to be criticizing a bit of the choice of movies that were being showed at Regal cinemas at that time. You would see in the article that he was describing movies like Vachan, which were being shown, and he was like, this is not the right movie to show in my cinema hall, so that we can find better movies to show. And then he would like show and give and show, so that people would come and get influenced with better movies, and they would build better choices. So that's the kind of influence Mr. Keki Gazder seemed to have on the city. We have added the article also in the book, so you'll get to read it. And
Yeah, so there's also a mention of him reviewing a play called The Crimson Coconut, where there was the portrayal of this character called Mr. Jabstick by Rusi Bilamoria, and he was very impressed with the portrayal, and he had written a letter to the editor saying how much he loved it. So when we saw a photograph of wrestlers with spears, Mr. Jabstick played in our mind. So we related it to a bit where we made it seem as though Keki had left these photographs of wrestlers on his desk, and his nephews chanced upon it, and he couldn't explain what wrestling was, who Dara Singh was, so he just referred to them as Mr. Jabstick, and that's how they used to refer to wrestlers henceforth. So that is our little play with fiction there, instead of just saying that it's a photograph of wrestlers displaying something, putting together something when Dara Singh came. So it's been quite fun, the process of going through this archive. Very grateful to the Gazder Bharucha family for allowing us to play with it and to do justice to every story that we've heard from their parents, cousins, everyone who's just WhatsApped us little details about who they knew, time periods, because the timeline stretches from the 1930s till the late 1990s. So it's over a century, and to see photography develop over time, especially without putting our like it's not just another Parsee story, it's just not a history project or a museum project. The incompleteness of archives is what makes this so amazing, and we've let that incompleteness be. We have kind of reveled in that. So that's what I learned to do primarily from Abhishek, because I am terrible with the camera, and I have learned to read photographs like that, where a good picture is a good picture without any text. So a lot of these photographs that you might see here, you might just singularly see them and be like, what a good frame. That is the intention, for it to be a photo forward exhibition and to relate photography from like the beginning 1900s to the late 90s, and you see it develop over time, and we've wrought it out in such a way as though it seems like a man going through his old photographs and then shooting his near and dear ones around him, traveling overseas, getting influenced by a certain kind of aesthetic, coming back into town and implementing the same things he saw, taking photography forward, and also continuing to document his family. And Feroza ma'am was very nicely suggesting in the afternoon, why don't you document the present too, because that's when Varun came up with photographs of his baby daughter, and we were like, this is 5th generation now, so to add to that would be quite interesting. But digital has a way of preserving itself in the cloud, in God knows where. But yeah, take care of history is all I can say. And any last words before we?
Yes, a big thank you to both of you for ensuring that these photographs live on. And by sharing this, the reaction and the attention and the love that's been given, like, oh my gosh, this is now like a time portal where we can step back and see things, how things were at that point of time. So I think everyone is taking a little bit from these photographs, from different points of view, and that is the magic of sharing. So thank you so much for helping sharing this and for helping preserving this, and we look forward to preserving more and doing
two more boxes. Here's two more boxes.
Yes, 2 more boxes. A lot more boxes.